Hi, I'm Janice Phipp, and welcome back to Pearls. This episode today is about classic poetry, and I would expect my target audience for this program to be parents of young children, grandparents who spend time with their children, babysitters, and especially teachers. Because what I'm going to talk to you about when I was principal, if you saw my intro to this channel, and please subscribe to Pearls, I think you're going to enjoy it. But when I first did my introduction, I was a 42-year educator and spent 17 years as principal of an elementary school. There is nothing that I ever saw, even my own children, that they loved better than being read to. There is a lot of contemporary stories and poetry out there. There are marvelous chapter books today. And I did find, though, that when I read classic poetry to my students at our elementary school, they loved it. They absolutely loved it. Their parents loved it. So this is what I want you to know. Number one, don't worry about it, because the Common Core standards are absolutely being met when reading classic poetry to your children or students. Common Core standards, of course, across the country, many states, the majority of states have adopted the Common Core standards, which means that nothing really can be taught in the school that is not in alignment with those standards. And this definitely is, so that's great. You're going to be developing phonemic awareness, vocabulary skills, articulation skills, fluency, comprehension, and guess what? You're going to have a heck of a lot of fun, and so are the children. All right, let's start with a topic or a book that so many of you have heard of. You probably have this in your child's library. If not, your home if your home library doesn't have it, your school library does, and if not, your community library does. If not, go on Amazon.com and order A Child's Garden of Verses by Robert Louis Stevenson. Now, will you look at this book? My friend Vicky found this at a yard sale. It is copyright 1929. Robert Louis Stevenson wrote these poems in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and they are as our children can relate to them, honestly. All right, look at my post-it notes. That's because I've read these poems over and over and over. Okay, let's start with the swing. Look at the pictures, the illustrations in this book. It's just magnificent. Please think about this in terms of, remember, nobody, not a child, not an adult, can comprehend unless they have something in their experiences that they can connect to for comprehension. Well, who can't connect to a swing? Whether they've been on one, they've seen them. Now this one looks a little different than the one you may have in your backyard, but here we go. The swing. How do you like to go up in a swing, up in the air so blue? Oh, I do think it's the pleasantest thing ever a child can do. Up in the air and over the wall till I can see so wide, rivers and trees and cattle and all over the countryside, till I look down on the garden green, down on the roof so brown. Up in the air I go flying again, up in the air and down. Well, when you finish reading that, you have so much to talk about. Have you ever been on a swing? What does it feel like when you're up? What do you see from up there? So that's just one. Now, there is the good old one, the rain. The rain is raining all around. It falls on field and tree. It rains on the umbrellas here and on the ships at sea. So that's a beauty. I love At the Seaside. Will you look at that picture? Oh, my sister and I love that. Okay, At the Seaside. When I was down beside the sea, a wooden spade they gave to me to dig the sandy shore. My holes were empty like a cup, in every hole the sea came up, till it could come no more. So a child who's been on the beach, you can relate to digging in the sand and the water coming up. But these were written in the late 1800s. It's amazing. And Robert Louis Stevenson himself, very interesting when you read his life story. He was a sickly child, and that's why a lot of his poems talk about nurse. My shadow. I love this one. I think I love them all. I have a little shadow that goes in and out with me, and what can be the use of him is more than I can see. He is very, very like me from my heels up to my head, and I see him jump before me when I jump into my bed. The funniest thing about him is the way he likes to grow, not at all like proper children, which is always very slow. For he sometimes shoots up taller than an Indian rubber ball, and he sometimes gets so little that there's none of him at all. He hasn't got a notion of how children ought to play, and can only make a fool of me in every sort of way. He stays so close beside me, he's a coward, you can see. I'd think shame to stick to Nursey as my shadow sticks to me. One morning very early, before the sun was up, I rose and found the shining dew on every buttercup. But my lazy little shadow, like an errant sleepyhead, had stayed at home behind me and was fast asleep in bed. Teachers, you talk about an integrated lesson with language arts and science. You talk about the seasons and how the sun comes up and goes down at different times. Fascinating. Now, I'm only going to leave Robert Louis Stevenson because I want to get a couple of other poets in here. Now, this happens to be the Childcraft Encyclopedia's children's series. But when I was a child, we had, and my sister has them. I didn't get them. My sister got them. Yes, Joanne, I love you. The How and Why Library is what my father read to us from. But this is the Childcraft that I bought for my children when they were young. Now, don't overlook the Mother Goose nursery rhymes, please, because talk about phonemic awareness and all of that. It's wonderful. Bye-bye bunting, daddy's gone a-hunting, gone to get a rabbit skin to wrap the baby bunting in. Rockabye baby, the rockabye baby, the hushabye baby, patty cake. There's so many. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating her curds and whey. There came a big spider and sat down beside her and frightened Miss Muffet away. Sorry. Okay, now, the other one I want to show you is on page 24. And this is, let me see. Oh, it's not in this book. I'm sorry. Oh, Christina Rosetti. This is Children's Classic Poetry Collection. You can find, as I said, so many of them on Amazon.com or anywhere. Okay, page 24. This is Christina Rosetti. This is another lovely book. The Wind. Who has seen the wind? Neither I nor you. But when the leaves hang trembling, the wind is passing through. Who has seen the wind? Neither you nor I. But when the trees bow down their heads, the wind is passing by. That's Christina Rosetti. She has some other wonderful stories. Here's one that's anonymous that a lot of you, if you're grandparents, you've heard this one. The north wind doth blow. The north wind doth blow, and we shall have snow. And what will poor Robin do then, poor thing? He'll sit in a barn and keep himself warm and hide his head under his wing. Poor thing. Again, science integrated with language arts for you who are teachers. Okay. The next one I want to tell you is, or share with you, is 190. Well, when my sister hears this one, she's going to go crazy because this was my father's favorite. Page 190 of the Hal and Wide. I'm sorry. I was in the wrong book. Page 190. It's Eugene Field, and it's called The Duel. Get ready. And children love this. The gingham dog and the calico cat side by side on the table sat. 'Twas 12:30, and what do you think? Nor one nor the other had slept a wink. The old Dutch clock and the Chinese plate appeared to know as sure as fate there was going to be a terrible spat. I wasn't there, I simply state what was told to me by the Chinese plate. The gingham dog went bow wow wow, and the calico cat replied meow. The air was littered an hour or so with bits of gingham and calico, while the old Dutch clock in the chimney place up with its hands before its face, for it always dreaded a family row. Now mind, I'm only telling you what the old Dutch clock declares is true. The Chinese plate looked very blue and wailed, "Oh dear, what shall we do?" But the gingham dog and the calico cat wallowed this way and tumbled that, enjoying every tooth and claw in the awfulest way you ever saw. And oh, how the gingham and the calico flew. Don't fancy I exaggerate. I got my news from the Chinese plate. Next morning, where the two had sat, they found no trace of dog nor cat. And some folks think until this day that burglars stole that pair away. But the truth about the cat and pup is this: they ate each other up. Now what do you think of that? The old Dutch clock, it told me so, and that is how I came to know. Isn't that beautiful? And I read this within the past 5 or 6 years to students, and they loved it. They loved it. Okay. Don't forget Edward Lear, The Owl and the Pussycat. There are so many. But I'm going to stop for a minute because I have to get in the Possum's Book of Practical Cats by T.S.Eliot. You want to read something that these kids will get so excited about. These are from the Cats show, the Broadway show Cats. However, T.S. Eliot wrote these in, you know what, I'm trying to think, in like 1939, I think. And my husband bought me this book. On one of our first trips, we went to New Hope, Pennsylvania, and I found it in the bookstore, and he bought it for me. And don't tell anybody, but we read each other the poems. Skip. Nobody will see this, so don't worry about it. Okay, here we go. I'm going to read one. The Old Gumby Cat. I have a Gumby cat in mind. I'm sorry. The Old Gumby Cat. I have a Gumby cat in mind. Her name is Jenny Anydots. Her coat is of the tabby kind, with tiger stripes and leopard spots. All day she sits upon the stairs, or on the steps, or on the mat. She sits and sits and sits and sits, and that's what makes a Gumby cat. But when the day's hustle and bustle is done, then the Gumby cat's work is but hardly begun. And when all the family's in bed and asleep, she tucks up her skirts and the stairs to the basement to creep. She is deeply concerned with the ways of the mice. Their behavior's not good and their manners not nice. So when she has got them lined up on the matting, she teaches them music, crocheting, and tatting. I have a Gumby cat in mind. Her name is Jenny Anydots. Her equal would be hard to find. She likes the warm and sunny spots. All day she sits beneath the hearth or on the sun or on my hat. In the sun or on my hat. She sits and sits and sits and sits, and that's what makes a Gumby cat. And on and on and on. Now, let me read another one. Let me see if I can find Macavity. Rum Tum Tugger. This is good. Rum Tum Tugger is a curious cat. If you offer him pheasant, he would rather have grouse. If you put him in a house, he would much prefer a flat. If you put him in a flat, then he'd rather have a house. If you set him on a mouse, then he only wants a rat. If you set him on a rat, then he'd rather chase a mouse. Yes, the Rum Tum Tugger is a curious cat, and there isn't any call for me to shout it. For he will do as he do, and there's no doing anything about it. Now, I could go on and on because these poems are fabulous, but I'm going to tell you a little secret about this. You know the Broadway play Cats? It was each one of these poems set to music. Andrew Lloyd Webber's music, Cats. So what you do is, you read the poems first, you get your kids excited about the tempo and the words and how silly they are, and then you get a CD of Andrew Lloyd Webber's music, and then you play the music, the exact words. It's unbelievable. I have read this to children over the years, and they love it. They absolutely love it. The Broadway play was a winner for how many years? So this is T.S.Eliot from 1939, coupled with Andrew Lloyd Webber, went to Broadway. Okay, enough for today. Go get some classic poetry for your children. Email me, respond to me on this, YouTube, and let's see if we can find some more. Bye for now.